50% of marriages in Europe end up with a divorce. And according to a recent survey, only 3 couples out of 10 would say that they are happy in their current relationship. There is a huge crisis, and it seems that it's never been more difficult to find someone suitable.
چیزی که داریم میگین دلیل کافی برای طلاق نیست خانم. اگه دلیل دیگه داریم بفهمید.
چه دلیل دیگه؟
شوهرتون معتاد باشه، کتکتون بزنه، خرجی نده.
نه خیر، ایشون نه معتاده نه مشکلی داره، خیلی هم آدم خوب و سالمی.
پس برای چی میخواد طلاق بگیره؟
This video is part of a whole series, so don't forget to subscribe to the Muslim Vibes so you can receive fresh content. Are our expectations too high? What is going on in terms of marriage and relationships?
There's always been present has been an attention on superficial details. There's been very little discussion, very little emphasis on personal qualities. But what we now see with the advent of internet technologies has been the rapid increase in checklist mentalities. Our ability to be able to settle for someone who has a fair degree of compatibility is now compromised because the thought going through someone's mind is there might be someone better around the corner. And it's getting worse. And so I do think we are in a situation where we have a cohort of women especially who will never marry. And we may well have a cohort of men who will also never marry.
Danger is when you only look at material success and only look at that from one angle. Because if those same qualities aren't channeled to a more balanced and holistic way of living, and God isn't part of your life, then I think that's where the challenge is.
We're sold the lie that the wedding day is the climax of life, while in our traditions, it is rather the foundation, the beginning of a whole new set of responsibilities. While our modern society has made it common to spend dozens of thousands of pounds on our wedding day, Islamic traditions state that rather the best of marriages are those with the least expenses and the least disturbances. Because we conflate marriage with romance, infatuation, and honeymoon, we sometimes overlook huge red flags.
There's so much more attention now on the process of getting married and very little attention on what happens after the marriage. Looks fade, money can come and go. We don't have enough emphasis on premarital counselling.
Your spouse, your wife or your husband is the one person who can see you from every angle and see every defect and see you physically bare and almost see your soul bare. So you can't hide from them. We know the reasons marriage failed. So it could be anger issues, could be domestic abuse, could be emotional abuse, could be infidelity, having affairs. It could be you're forced into it, could be you're not ready, interference. The 4 root causes are not being comfortable in your own skin or not being self-accepting, not having transitioned to adult mode from child mode, baggage you brought into marriage and not knowing who you are. Like who are you in terms of your core values and what you're willing to compromise on.
People follow what the society tells us what a good partner is. According to research, what keeps us in the dark has a name. It is normativity. We are taught to wear a mask, and at times it can feel like a giant role-playing game. To succeed at this game, one needs to conform to what is expected from them as men or women. These are norms. Our brains have been completely rewired.
One of the things that we are noticing anecdotally are the number of marriages that are failing within the first 1 or 2 years, which is increasing. And one of the things that seems to come up again and again, mother-in-law or parent-in-law issues are a common problem, but the other key issue is this kind of different expectations between men and women, and then they're not talking about what their expectations are in terms of marriage in real terms prior to marriage. And one of the reasons why they're not doing that is because they don't know how to. One of the things I've heard from women, for instance, has been that they find that their husbands expect them to effectively mother them. So women come into a marriage and they know that it's not their duty to pick up their husband's dirty socks. They know that the Prophet did his own fair share of domestic chores, that he mended his own clothes, and they're expecting their husbands to follow the sunnah.
But the problem, of course, is that if people get married for the mask they wear, things will become much more difficult when masks fall. How many brothers and sisters I have met who have ended up in abusive relationships? One of the most damaging norms has a name. It is patriarchy. American black thinker and feminist Bell Hooks has a theory that patriarchy affects both men and women. Men are told to suppress their emotions, while women are told to accept that man has to be dominant. These have become norms widely accepted and expressed in popular culture.
It could be the relationship you had with your own parents. It could be the relationship you saw between your own parents. It could be the environment you brought up. If you're not at peace with yourself, or you don't actually like this person, it's very difficult to be at peace or to love someone if you don't love this person here.
There's also sometimes a sense, and Bell Hooks talks about this as well, where women think that this is what a relationship is meant to be. This is a normal relationship, to accept abuse. So she gives the examples of abusers, men who say they love their wives and their children but are physically violent towards them. We need to start thinking about each other as our respective brothers and sisters who are also finding difficulties in getting married, and think about what are the patterns of behaviour that we are recreating when we are searching for our own partners, that are leading to our own siblings having difficulties in finding matrimonial partners.
With no source of learning about love, marriage, relationships and emotions, the society has made us emotionally dumb. We are not educated to cultivate our emotional intelligence. When a conflict occurs, we are not taught how to pause, step back, analyze our feelings and articulate them to the other person. Conversely, we are not taught how to hold space to the other person. Marriage is not a noun, it is a verb, which means hard work.
One of the benefits of marriage, and it's one of the hardest things I have found in marriage, is that because you can't hide from this other person, guess what they do? They will identify strengths that you have and gifts that you have, but equally, they will identify your weaknesses and your flaws. They're identifying that. Did you know, for example, you have a jealousy issue? Do you know you have an anger issue? Do you know you're always gossiping? Do you realize you're always trying to put people down? Now, when someone raises that to you, you have two options. The child in you will say, I don't want to hear this. The adult in you, the whisper will say, you know what? I have to accept this. It's not only tough to hear it, it's not only tough to accept it, and it's equally tough to then work on it because you've been so used to that behavior pattern or that way of life. That is falling in love because that person has helped you in becoming a better person.
Bell Hooks is really interesting because she came to these conclusions after years of therapy, and this is what's led her to sort of think about what the definition of love is, and to think about love as an action verb, as something that you work at, and that it's something that you have to continually maintain and sustain. It's an act of agency and an act of choice, whereas the traditional notions of love are that this is something that is quite irrational, and that we fall in love and that we lose control of our faculties to some degree.
There is a process. I think my wife does this a lot. It's something known as listening time. You set a time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, and in that time, the other person just listens and this person just talks. And they're not allowed to interrupt at all. And normally the way to figure out what needs to be processed is these trigger. Why do you keep getting angry at the same point every single time? Why do you go down that path and then you try and explore it? Maybe things you saw when you're growing up, or patterns you saw between your own parents when they're married.
Bonnie, you need to listen.
Listen to what? That lawyer don't give a shit about me. He don't give a shit about nobody. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. I didn't mean none of that for you. I love you.
And I understand what you're going through, because I'm with you.
The goal is for us to find someone with whom we will feel safe once we come back home, and with whom we will be safe from the challenges of this dunya. If you want to explore the topic further, there is a list of articles, books and other references right in the description of this video. Keep yourself updated on facts, news and much more by subscribing to The Muslim Vibe. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, inshallah.